What's up, everybody? Frank Giovetti here with Be Frank Brands. Issa review. We're talking about episode 4 of The Last Dance. It's a review. Okay, so there is a lot going on in this episode. There's a lot to talk about. Buckle up. So first of all, we were left with the cliffhanger from episode 3. Dennis Rodman leaving mid-season to go to Vegas for 48 hours. He's drinking and driving motorcycles. He's hanging out with his girlfriend Carmen Electra at the bar. Who wouldn't want to do that mid-season? And long story short, it works like a charm. I'm sure so many people judged him at the time and now watching the documentary, but you gotta give credit to the guy. He knows himself and he knows what he needs. Just like that, he comes back to the Bulls. Phil Jackson's trying to get him back in shape, and Jordan's like, hey, he's good to go. Anyway, I loved that little bit. I love stories about people rising up, succeeding, and honoring their true selves. And speaking of such, we get a little insight on Coach Phil Jackson as well. So Dennis and Phil Jackson share a common bond with some Native American ancestry. We're taken into Phil Jackson's coaching background, time spent in Puerto Rico, time as a player. I found it really neat to watch his journey play out, knowing how successful he was and knowing where he came from. I think it also reinforced a couple of things for me. Number one, you see him working hard. You see him doing whatever it takes to better his craft and pursue his passions. I thought that was really cool. And number two, he had a natural desire to look outside the box for solutions. So many times in my life, whether it be for music or branding or anything personally, I crave structure, so I would look for a blueprint. It was cool to see that while Phil was doing some things that NBA coaches were before coaching outside the United States, he was now incorporating things that he had learned from his journey that weren't necessarily in the coach's handbook. I think if you add creativity, hard work, and technical knowledge to any skill, you're going to find expertise. All right, so moving on. Talking about the Pistons and when Phil Jackson first got hired in place of Doug Collins. It was pretty unbelievable to see, but not unheralded, especially in today's sports. Doug Collins had just taken them to their first Eastern Conference championship. It's not every day you fire a winning playoff coach. I say this though with one little caveat, thinking about just a couple years ago, the Toronto Raptors doing the same thing with their head coach who had taken them to the championship and he was fired. Now, unlike the Toronto Raptors of 2018-2019, the Bulls went on and lost in the Eastern Conference that following year, having made the switch to Phil Jackson. You want to talk about patience, and you want to talk about the importance of losing right there. You can see Jordan's mindset finally switch. Thanks to the new famous triangle offense that Phil Jackson brought, Michael Jordan finally was able to implement more teamwork into his game. When they lost to the Pistons that year, he knew it wasn't himself that he needed to make better, it was the people around him. I think that's super neat. Today we would call that leveling up. It's a phrase that's been circulating online with entrepreneurs and small business owners. To me, what it entails is doing what it takes to take the next step. In Jordan's case, it was as simple as getting his teammates on board. Now, there was certainly a risk here, as time spent on his teammates was certainly time spent away from his game. However, he would not have been able to achieve what he was overall with all the championships having not made that shift. I'm trying to do a lot more of this in my life, trying to make more genuine, wholesome connections on Instagram, supporting others' endeavors, and finally with the music, taking a look at cover videos, something that I never had wanted to do before, but now seem to really be enjoying. The show continues on from here as the Chicago Bulls finally beat the Detroit Pistons and move on to the finals against Magic Johnson and the Lakers. Not only are they now world champions, they have also conquered their biggest hurdle in beating the Pistons, and Michael Jordan has cemented himself alongside Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Dr. J as one of the all-time greats. I think the culmination of this episode is we see Jordan with the trophy. We had heard from all the other players through that season that it was incredibly difficult and Jordan was pushing them. Everybody was getting cussed in practice, everybody was getting shoved around, and now we finally see this vulnerability, this intimacy. He's received what all of this work has been put in for. Coming into the show, I had no idea how large the presence of the Detroit Pistons loomed for Michael Jordan and for the Bulls. So the famous shot of Jordan crying and holding the trophy means that much more, having gone through that experience. It took an unbelievable amount of hard work, and it took years of dedication for him to finally get that first championship. We're talking about maybe the most gifted athlete to date at the time. And it still took him years. I want to encourage those of you working on your passions, maybe getting a little bit frustrated with where you are. Number one, keep working. You saw what happened to Jordan. It always pays off. Number two, be patient and stay hungry. It's not going to happen overnight. You need to work today as if your opportunity is tomorrow, but knowing it may not come for years. I'm taking my own advice on this one. I work really hard, but a lot of times I get really discouraged. Find the love in what you're doing. If I can do it, you certainly can do it. So that's what I have for episode 4. I love the series. I'd love to hear what you think about it. Stay in touch. Let's chat. Issa review.